The colony ship Airing was dying. Its engines had failed 3 days ago, and now it drifted through empty space like a leaf floating on a dark river. Inside, 12,000 humans waited for death. They had left Earth with dreams of finding a new home among the stars. Now those dreams were fading, just like the lights inside their broken ship. Captain Park stood on the bridge, looking at the screens that showed nothing but endless darkness. The ship had enough air for maybe 2 more weeks. Food would run out before that. He had sent distress signals in every direction, but no one answered. They were alone in a part of space that no human had ever visited before. In the lower decks, a little girl named Yuna held her mother's hand. Her mother was very sick. The doctors said she needed medicine that the ship didn't have. Yuna was only 7 years old, but she understood that something very bad was happening. She could see it in the tired eyes of the adults. She could hear it in their quiet voices. "Mama," Yuna whispered, "are we going to be okay?" Her mother smiled weakly. "Don't worry, little one. Someone will find us." But Yuna could tell that her mother didn't really believe her own words. Far away, on a world called Velaris Prime, an old Velori named Tavesh stood in her garden. She was what her people called an elder, a leader who had lived for many centuries and gained much wisdom. Her wings, which had once glowed bright blue, were now faded with age. But her mind was still sharp, and her heart was still kind. The Velori were a peaceful species. They had large eyes that reflected light like jewels, and their bodies were covered in soft, glowing patterns. They had wings like giant butterflies, and these wings changed color based on their feelings. They were not warriors. They were gardeners, artists, and healers. A young Velori messenger flew into the garden, her wings flashing urgent yellow. "Elder Tavash, we have received a strange signal. It comes from a ship we don't recognize. The beings inside are asking for help." Tavash looked up at the stars. "What kind of beings?" "We don't know. We have never seen them before. They call themselves humans." Tavash thought about this. Her people had their own problems. A solar flare had damaged their crops last season, and food was not easy to find. Many Velori thought they should focus on their own survival. Helping strangers was a risk they could not afford. But Tavash remembered something her own mother had told her long ago. Kindness was never wasted. It was like planting a seed. You might not see the flower grow, but someday, someone would. "Prepare our ships," Tavash said. "We will go to them." The Velori rescue fleet found the Ararang drifting in the darkness. When the human crew saw the alien ships approaching, they did not know if they should feel hope or fear. They had never met aliens before. They did not know if these glowing creatures wanted to help them or harm them. Captain Park watched as the Velori ships connected to his vessel. Strange, beautiful beings floated through the corridors, their wings casting soft light in the darkness. They carried food, medicine, and equipment. They spoke in a language no human understood, but their gentle movements made their intentions clear. They had come to help. A Velori healer named Kivish found little Yuna sitting beside her unconscious mother. The child looked up at the alien with wide, frightened eyes. Kivish had never seen a human before. The little creature had no wings, no glowing patterns. She was small and fragile and clearly terrified. Kivish knelt down and extended one glowing hand. Slowly, carefully, she touched Yuna's cheek. Her wings shifted to a soft, calming purple. "Safe," Kivish said, using one of the few words she had learned from the translation device. "You safe now." Yuna didn't understand most of the alien's words, but she understood the kindness in those large, jewel-like eyes. She reached out and took Kivash's hand. For the next 3 months, the Velori cared for the human survivors. They shared food even though they had little to spare. They healed the sick even though their own people needed medicine. Elder Tivish made sure that every human was treated with respect and kindness. When Yuna's mother finally woke up, healed by Valori medicine, she found her daughter sleeping beside her, holding a small glowing flower that Kivash had given her as a gift. "The glowing ones saved us," Yuna told her mother. "They're so nice, Mama. They didn't have to help us, but they did anyway." Her mother held her close and cried tears of relief and gratitude. "We must never forget this, Yuna. Never. Promise me." "I promise, Mama." Eventually, the humans were able to repair their ship with Valori help. Before they left to continue their journey, Captain Park stood before Elder Tivash. He bowed low, a sign of deep respect in human culture. "You saved us," he said through the translation device. "You had no reason to help strangers. You had your own troubles. But you saved us anyway. We can never repay this debt." Tavash's wings glowed warm gold. "There is no debt. We helped because you needed help. That is enough." But Captain Park shook his head. "Where we come from, we have a saying. A kindness given is never forgotten. Someday, somehow, we will repay what you have done for us." Tavash smiled in her alien way. "Then I wish you well, Captain. May your journey bring you to the home you seek." The Araran flew away into the stars. Yuna pressed her face against the window, watching the glowing planet of Velaris Prime grow smaller and smaller until it disappeared. In her hand, she still held the little flower that Kivash had given her. She would keep that flower for the rest of her life. And she would tell her children the story of the glowing ones who saved them. And her children would tell their children. Humanity would not forget. 300 years passed like water flowing down a river. The humans who had been saved by the Valori found their new home on a green planet they called New Bizin. They built cities, grew crops, and raised families. They never forgot the story of the Araran and the kind aliens who had rescued them from death. Yuna grew up, got married, and had children of her own. Before she died at the age of 92, she made her daughter promise to keep the story alive. Her daughter promised, and she told the story to her own children. And so it continued generation after generation, the tale of the glowing ones passing from parent to child like a precious treasure. Humanity did not stay on one planet for long. They were a restless species, always wanting to explore, always wanting to build something new. Within 100 years, they had colonies on 20 different worlds. Within 200 years, they had become one of the major powers in the galaxy. Other species often wondered how humans grew so fast. They lived such short lives compared to most aliens. A human was lucky to see 100 years. Many species lived for 1,000 years or more. How could such short-lived creatures accomplish so much? The answer was simple. Humans knew their time was limited, so they worked harder and faster. They did not wait for tomorrow. They built today. Today, they made mistakes, learned from them, and kept moving forward. Their energy seemed endless. Their determination was frightening. Admiral Taiho of the Human Coalition Fleet was a serious man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 40 years in the military, protecting human colonies from pirates, negotiating treaties with alien governments, and exploring unknown regions of space. He had seen many things, both wonderful and terrible, but the story he loved most was not about his own adventures. It was the story of the Ararang. Taiho was a direct descendant of one of the survivors. His great-great-grandmother had been a young woman on that dying ship. She had kept a diary during those dark days, writing about her fear, her hope, and finally her gratitude when the Valori came to save them. Taiho kept that diary in his personal quarters. Sometimes, when he felt lost or confused, he would read her words. They reminded him of what was truly important. One evening, his second-in-command, Commander Myray, came to see him. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a quick mind. Taiho trusted her completely. "Sir, I have the latest intelligence report on the Valori," she said, placing a data pad on his desk. Taiho frowned. "The Valori? I haven't heard anything about them in years." "That's part of the problem, sir. They've gone very quiet." Taiho picked up the data pad and read through the report. What he found made his heart sink. The Valori homeworld had suffered a massive solar event 50 years ago. Their sun had become unstable, sending waves of radiation that destroyed their crops and damaged their cities. Millions had died. The survivors were struggling to keep their civilization alive, but the worst part was that they had asked no one for help. They had sent no distress signals. They had simply suffered in silence. Why didn't they ask for assistance? Taiho asked, his voice heavy with sadness. Myray shook her head. Pride, sir. Or maybe they didn't think anyone would care. They're not a powerful species. They have no military, no valuable resources. In the eyes of the galaxy, they don't matter. Taiho thought about his great-great-grandmother's diary. He thought about a 7-year-old girl named Yuna, holding the hand of a glowing alien while her mother lay dying. He thought about the Valori sharing their food when they barely had enough for themselves. They matter to us, he said quietly. Myray smiled, as if she had been waiting for him to say exactly that. Sir, do you know what today is? Taiho looked at her with confusion. What do you mean? Today is the 300th anniversary of the Ararang rescue. 300 years since the Valori saved 12,000 of our people. Taiho was silent for a long moment. He looked at the diary on his shelf, at the faded words written by a frightened young woman who had thought she was going to die. Get me a connection to Fleet Command, he said finally, and to the Coalition Council, and to every media outlet in human space. Myray raised an eyebrow. What are you planning, sir? Taiho stood up and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the descendants of the aliens who had saved his ancestors were suffering. They were dying slowly, alone, forgotten by a galaxy that didn't care about kindness, but humanity cared. Humanity remembered. 300 years ago, the Valori saved us when we were weak and helpless, Taiho said. They gave us food when they were hungry. They gave us medicine when they were sick. They asked nothing in return. He turned to face Myray, and his eyes were bright with purpose. It's time to repay our debt. Prepare the fleet. Every ship we can spare. Every resource we can gather. We're going to save them, just like they saved us. Myray nodded, her own eyes shining with emotion. I was hoping you would say that, sir. I'll make the calls. Within a week, the largest humanitarian fleet in human history was being assembled. Ships came from every human colony. Civilian volunteers signed up by the thousands. Companies donated supplies. Scientists offered their expertise. When the galaxy asked why humans were doing this, the answer was always the same, because someone had been kind to them once. And humanity never forgot. Ravash was bored. He was always bored. His job was to sit at a small observation station at the edge of the Valori system and watch for danger. But danger never came. No one cared about Velaris Prime anymore. No one visited. No one attacked. No one even remembered they existed. He was a young Valori male, his wings still pale because they had not yet developed their full color. He spent most of his time looking out the window at the stars and dreaming of a more exciting life. His scanner beeped occasionally, usually detecting a passing asteroid or a small piece of space debris. Nothing important, so when his scanner suddenly went crazy with alerts, he thought something was broken. He looked at the screen and saw numbers that made no sense. 100 contacts. Then 500. Then 1,000. Then more than he could count. His scanner was detecting more ships than he had ever seen in his entire life. His wings turned bright yellow with fear. This had to be an invasion. Some powerful species had finally decided to take what little the Valori had left. His people would be destroyed. With shaking hands, he sent a message to Valorous Prime. Central Command, this is Observation Station 7. We have incoming ships. Thousands of them. They appear to be human. Back on Valorous Prime, Elder Tavash received the news in her garden. She was very old now, even by Valori standards. Her wings barely glowed at all anymore. Most of her friends from long ago had died. Sometimes she wondered why she continued to live when so much had been lost. She remembered the humans. Of course she remembered. 300 years was a long time, but some memories never faded. She remembered a scared little girl holding her hand in the darkness. She remembered sharing food with strange wingless creatures who cried tears of gratitude. But that was so long ago. Surely the humans had forgotten by now. Surely this fleet was coming for some other purpose. Perhaps to conquer. Perhaps to take their planet. Perhaps to finish what the sun had started. "Show me," she said to her assistant. A screen appeared in the air, displaying images from the observation stations. Tavash watched as ship after ship emerged from faster-than-light travel. They were human ships. Military vessels, cargo ships, medical frigates, construction drones. An armada larger than anything she had ever seen. Her old heart beat fast with fear. What did the humans want? Why had they come with so much force? Then a message arrived. The face of a human male appeared on every screen on Valorous Prime. He had gray hair and serious eyes, but there was something warm in his expression. "People of Valorous," the human said. "My name is Admiral Taiho of the Human Coalition Fleet. 300 years ago, your people saved 12,000 humans from death. You gave us food when you were hungry. You gave us medicine when you were sick. You asked for nothing in return." Tavash felt something strange in her chest. Something she had not felt in a very long time. Hope. "Humanity does not forget kindness," Admiral Taiho continued. "We remember every good deed. We teach our children to remember. And we repay our debts." Behind the military ships, massive cargo vessels began moving into position. They carried food, medicine, building materials, farming equipment, power generators. Everything a dying civilization might need to survive. "We have come to help you," Admiral Taiho said. "Just as you once helped us. This is not charity. This is not pity. This is repayment for a debt that is 3 centuries old. Please allow us to do for you what you once did for us." Across Valorous Prime, the Lori citizens watched their screens with disbelief. For 50 years, they had struggled alone. They had rationed food, watched their children grow weak, buried their dead in ever larger numbers. They had accepted that their species might simply fade away, forgotten by a galaxy that valued power over kindness. And now the humans had come. Not to conquer, not to take, but to give. Young Valori looked at old Valori with confusion. Why would they do this? They asked. What do they want from us? The elders just smiled with trembling wings. They want nothing. They are repaying a favor. We helped their ancestors, and now they help us. But that was 300 years ago. Humans remember. They always remember. Tavesh stood alone in her garden, tears falling from her ancient eyes. She had never expected this. When she had ordered the rescue of the Araring, she had done it simply because it was the right thing to do. She had never imagined that kindness could be returned so powerfully, so completely. After so many years, she requested a direct communication with Admiral Taiho. When his face appeared before her, she saw that he was looking at her with deep respect. "Admiral," she said, her voice weak with age and emotion. "I am Tyvish. I am the one who ordered your people saved all those years ago." Admiral Taiho's eyes widened. "You're still alive? After 300 years?" Valori live long lives. I have watched my world slowly die. I had accepted that my species would end. And then you came. She paused, struggling to control her emotions. Why? Why come now? Why help us? Taiho smiled gently. Because a little girl named Yuna never forgot the alien who held her hand in the darkness. She told her children. They told their children. And I am one of those children. Your kindness echoed through 300 years of human history. We could not ignore that echo. Tavash's wings glowed soft gold for the first time in decades. We asked for nothing in return. And that is why you deserve everything we can give. The human ships began their work. Landing craft descended to the surface, carrying workers and equipment. The reconstruction of Velaris Prime had begun, and somewhere in the fleet, in a small cabin on a supply ship, a young woman held an ancient dried flower that had been passed down through her family for 300 years. It had been a gift from a Valori nurse to a scared little girl, Dot, now that little girl's descendants had come to repay the favor. The humans worked with a speed that amazed the Valori. From the first day they arrived, they moved with purpose and energy. They did not wait for permission. They did not hold meetings or make plans. They simply looked at what needed to be done and did it. Ji Wu was an agricultural specialist who had spent her career helping human colonies grow food in difficult conditions. She had worked on frozen worlds, desert planets, and moons with toxic soil. The damaged farmlands of Velaris Prime were just another challenge. She landed with her team on fields that had once been green and beautiful. Now they were gray and dead, poisoned by decades of radiation from the unstable sun. The Valori farmers who met her looked hopeless. They had tried everything. Nothing would grow. Jiwoo took samples of the soil and analyzed them in her mobile laboratory. Within 3 days, she had developed a plan. Human scientists had created special plants that could grow in almost any environment. These plants could clean the soil while producing food at the same time. We can fix this, she told the Valori farmers. It will take a few months, but these fields will produce food again. The farmers did not believe her at first. They had lived with disappointment for too long. But when Jiwoo planted the first seeds and small green shoots appeared within a week, they began to hope. In the cities, engineer Dohim led teams that rebuilt power systems. The Valori used energy from their own bodies to create light, but their cities also needed power for machines, hospitals, and factories. The radiation had destroyed most of their power plants. Do-hyun was a quiet man who preferred machines to people. He could look at a broken system and immediately see how to fix it. The Valori watched him work with fascination. He moved through their damaged infrastructure like a doctor healing a sick patient, replacing broken parts, reconnecting severed lines, bringing dead systems back to life. "Why do you work so hard?" a young Valori engineer asked him one day. "You don't even rest. You work from sunrise to sunset." Dayan smiled and kept working. "My grandmother told me stories about the Valori when I was a child. She said you were the kindest beings in the galaxy. She said you saved our ancestors when no one else would. I grew up wanting to meet you, to thank you. This is my thank you." The young Valori's wings turned soft pink with emotion. No one had ever called his people kind before. Most species saw the Valori as weak and useless. To hear a human speak of them with such respect was almost overwhelming. In the hospitals, Dr. Sujin worked alongside Valori healers. The radiation had caused many diseases that Valori medicine could not cure. Cancers spread through the population. Birth defects became common. Each year, fewer healthy children were born. Sujin had brought human medical technology that could treat these diseases. She had drugs that targeted cancer cells without harming healthy tissue. She had machines that could repair damaged genes. She had treatments that the Valori had never imagined possible. "This child should have died years ago," a Valori healer said, watching as Sujin treated a young patient. "How is this possible?" Sujin checked the readings on her equipment. Human medicine has been developed through centuries of desperate survival. We colonized worlds that were trying to kill us. We faced diseases that should have destroyed us. We learned to fight back. Now we share what we learned. But we are not human. How do you know these treatments will work on us? Sujin smiled. We modified them. Your biology is different, but not that different. Life is life. We can help. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Human workers rebuilt roads, repaired buildings, restored water systems, and constructed new housing. They worked side by side with Valori citizens, teaching them new skills and learning about Valori culture in return. A young construction worker named Junho was building a new community center when a Valori child approached him. She was small, with wings that flickered nervous green. "Hello," Junho said, kneeling down to her level. "What's your name?" "Kivara," the child said shyly. "That's a beautiful name. Are you curious about what we're building?" Kivara nodded. "My mother says you come from far away. She says you're helping us because we helped you a long time ago. Is that true?" Junho set down his tools and thought about how to explain. "Yes, it's true. 300 years ago, when my ancestors were lost in space, your ancestors found them and saved them. They shared their food and medicine. They were very kind. That was nice of them." It was. And humans never forget when someone is nice to us. So now we're being nice to you. That's how it works. Kindness goes around and around, like a circle. Kivara's wings shifted to warm orange. "Will you remember us for 300 years too?" Junho laughed. "Even longer than that. We'll remember forever." Elder Tavash walked through her restored garden, surrounded by flowers that should not exist. Human botanists had brought seeds from a dozen different worlds, plants that could survive in damaged soil and harsh conditions. They had worked with Valori gardeners to create something new and beautiful. She watched a group of human and Valori children playing together near a fountain. The human children were fascinated by the Valori wings. The Valori children were amazed by how fast the humans could run. They laughed together in 2 different languages, but laughter needed no translation. Admiral Taiho visited her that evening. He brought a gift wrapped in simple cloth. "The reconstruction is ahead of schedule," he reported. "Within a year, your food production will be back to normal levels. Within 5 years, your population should be growing again." Tivish nodded slowly. "You have saved us. I do not have words to express what this means." Taiho handed her the wrapped gift. "This is for you, from the descendants of the Aring survivors." She opened it carefully. Inside was an ancient book, its pages yellow with age. It was a diary, written in a human language she could not read. "This belonged to a woman who was on the Araran," Taiho explained. "She wrote about the rescue. She wrote about you." He paused. "She wrote about her daughter Yuna and the Valori nurse who held her hand through the darkest night." Tivesh remembered Kivesh. Her old friend had died centuries ago, but she remembered her kindness, her gentle spirit. "We kept this diary for 300 years, Taiho said. "We want you to have it now, so you know that your kindness was never forgotten." Tavash held the diary close to her chest, her wings glowing the brightest gold they had shown in decades. Humanity had remembered, and they had returned the favor 1,000 times over. The Galactic Council was the most powerful organization in the known universe. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in a massive station that floated between the stars. Here, they made laws, settled disputes, and decided the fate of civilizations. When news of humanity's mission to Valoris Prime reached the Council, reactions were mixed. Some species were confused. Why would anyone spend so much helping a dying race? Others were suspicious. What did the humans really want? Nobody did something for nothing. Ambassador Hana represented humanity at the council. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had been a diplomat for 30 years. She had negotiated treaties, ended wars, and built alliances. But this meeting might be her most important. The council recognizes the human ambassador. The speaker announced. Hannah stood and faced the assembled representatives. They were insect species with clicking mandibles, reptile species with scaled skin, and energy beings who existed as floating lights. All of them watched her with curiosity. "Thank you, Speaker," Hannah said. "I am here to make an announcement. The Valori are now under the protection of the human coalition. Any attack against them will be considered an attack against us." Whispers spread through the chamber. The Valori were nobody. They had no military, no resources, no power. Why would humans protect them? The representative from the Dravak Empire spoke first. He was a tall being with 4 arms and scales that shifted color. "This is unusual behavior, Ambassador. The Valori have nothing to offer you. This protection makes no strategic sense." Hana smiled politely. "Not everything is about strategy, Representative. 300 years ago, the Valori saved 12,000 human lives. They asked for nothing in return. We are repaying that kindness. 300 years? The Dravak sounded amazed. "You are protecting them because of something that happened 300 years ago. Humanity has a long memory." Another voice spoke up. It belonged to the Kravik ambassador, a creature that looked like a giant insect with sharp claws and cold eyes. The Kravik were known throughout the galaxy as conquerors. They took what they wanted and destroyed anyone who resisted. "This is foolishness," the Kravik ambassador clicked. "The Valori are weak. They have always been weak. Resources spent on them are resources wasted. You humans are sentimental fools." Hana turned to face the Kravik ambassador directly. Her expression did not change, but something in her eyes became very cold. Sentimental? Perhaps fools? I think not. She paused. "Let me tell you something about humanity, Ambassador. We remember everything. Every kindness shown to us. Every cruelty inflicted upon us." The chamber became very quiet. "The Valori showed us mercy when we were weak and helpless. We have repaid that mercy 1,000 times over. That is what our gratitude looks like." Hannah took a step forward. "But the Kravik? Your species attacked our first colony ships 400 years ago. You killed 30,000 humans for sport. You left no survivors." The Kravik ambassador shifted uncomfortably. "That was long ago. Times were different. We remember it like it was yesterday. We teach our children about it. We have memorials on every human world." Hannah's voice was calm, almost gentle. "We have not taken revenge. Not yet. We have been patient. We have been waiting. Waiting for what?" Hannah smiled, and that smile made several representatives feel a chill despite the controlled temperature of the chamber. "That is an excellent question. Perhaps we are waiting for the right moment. Perhaps we are waiting until we are strong enough. Perhaps we simply enjoy watching you wonder." She turned to address the full council. "Let this be a lesson to every species in this galaxy. Humanity does not forget. If you help us when we are weak, we will remember. We will find you, even centuries later, and we will repay your kindness in ways you cannot imagine." She looked directly at the Kravik ambassador. "But if you hurt us, if you kill our people, we will remember that too. We are very patient. We can wait a long, long time. And when we finally decide to act, you will learn what human memory truly means." The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Ambassador Hana bowed politely and returned to her seat. Years later, scholars would look back at this moment as a turning point in galactic history. Species began to treat humans differently. Not because they feared human military power, though that was considerable, but because they understood something important. Humans remembered. On Valorous Prime, the reconstruction continued. Gardens bloomed. Children laughed. Factories hummed with activity. The Valori, once dying, were now thriving. Human ships patrolled their system constantly, a silent promise of protection. Elder Tivish sat in her garden one final time. She was very old now, even for a Valori. She knew she did not have much time left. But she was at peace. A young human woman came to visit her. She was a descendant of the Arang survivors, here to pay respects to the elder who had saved her ancestors. Elder Tivish, the woman said, kneeling before her. My name is Yuna. I was named after my ancestor, the little girl who was saved 300 years ago. Tivish smiled with fading light. She was so small, so frightened. Kivish held her hand through the long night. I know. The story has been passed down through my family for generations. Yuna held out a small object. It was the dried flower, preserved carefully for 3 centuries. Kivish gave this to my ancestor. I wanted you to have it. Tivish took the flower with trembling hands. She remembered giving flowers to human children so long ago. She remembered their strange faces and grateful tears. You humans, she whispered. You are the strangest species in the galaxy. Yuna smiled. Maybe, but we pay our debts. Tavash's wings glowed warm gold one last time. She looked at the flower, at the young human woman, at the garden filled with impossible plants and playing children. Tell your people something for me, she said. Tell them that kindness is never wasted. Even when you think no one notices. Even when you think it doesn't matter. Kindness echoes through time. It comes back to you in ways you cannot predict. I will tell them, Yuna promised. That night, Elder Tavesh passed away peacefully in her garden. The ancient flower held close to her heart. She was mourned by 2 species, human and Valori alike. And across the galaxy, the lesson spread. Be kind to those who are weak. Help those who are suffering. Because someday, somehow, that kindness might return to save you. And if you were cruel instead, if you hurt the helpless, the humans would remember that too. They always remembered. And they were very, very patient.